Machiavelli understood something most people never learn. When someone disrespects you, your natural response is exactly what destroys your power. He spent years watching the Borgias, the Medicis, and the ruthless princes of Renaissance Italy. What he discovered about handling disrespect changed everything we thought we knew about human relationships. Today, I'm revealing 7 Machiavellian strategies that turn disrespect into your greatest weapon. These aren't theories from a textbook. These are battle-tested methods that have survived 500 years because they work when nothing else does. But here's what you need to understand before we continue. Machiavelli wasn't teaching cruelty. He was teaching survival. In a world where showing weakness meant death, he mapped the invisible rules of power that still govern every human interaction. The people who disrespect you are counting on your ignorance of these rules. They're betting you'll react emotionally instead of strategically. That ends today. The first strategy Machiavelli revealed seems counterintuitive until you understand why it works. When someone disrespects you, never defend yourself immediately. Machiavelli observed that princes who rushed to explain themselves appeared weak. Defense signals that the accusation landed. It tells your opponent they found your vulnerability. Consider how this pattern played out in Renaissance power dynamics. We see this principle illustrated through Cesare Borgia's approach to handling accusations from rival families. They spread rumors about his brutality, his ambition, his methods. Historical accounts describe his response as strategic silence, not the silence of someone who has no answer, but the silence of someone whose power speaks louder than words. His enemies grew desperate when their attacks produced no reaction. They escalated, they overreached, they exposed themselves. This is what most people misunderstand about silence. They think it means accepting disrespect. Machiavelli knew it meant something far more dangerous. Silence forces your opponent to fill the void. They reveal their true intentions. They show you their strategy. They give you everything you need to defeat them without ever defending yourself. Modern neuroscience confirms what Machiavelli observed 5 centuries ago. When you defend yourself, you activate the other person's conviction that they're right. Their brain releases dopamine every time you react. You're literally rewarding them for disrespecting you. But when you remain silent, their certainty cracks. They start questioning themselves. The power dynamic shifts without you saying a single word. Think about the last time someone disrespected you and you immediately defended yourself. Did it make them respect you more? Or did they double down on their position? Machiavelli would tell you that defense is the language of the powerless. The powerful simply observe and remember. They catalogue each offense with the precision of a military strategist documenting enemy positions. They say nothing in the moment because they understand that silence is a weapon sharper than any immediate retaliation. Your silence accomplishes something your words never could. It creates uncertainty in your opponent's mind. They expected anger, defensiveness, justification. When you give them nothing, they start filling in the blanks with their own fears. Maybe you didn't respond because the insult was beneath you. Maybe you're planning something they can't see yet. Maybe they miscalculated your power. This psychological warfare happens entirely in their mind while you conserve your energy for battles that matter. But silence alone isn't enough if you don't know when to strike. This brings us to Machiavelli's second strategy. Choose your battles with ruthless precision. Machiavelli documented patterns across Renaissance Italy, where princes wasted their strength fighting every insult, every slight, every challenge to their authority. They exhausted themselves defending against attacks that didn't matter. Meanwhile, the real threats grew stronger in the shadows. Machiavelli's observations about Lorenzo de' Medici's strategic approach reveal that power isn't about winning every confrontation. Power is about identifying which battles determine your survival and ignoring everything else. When someone disrespects you, in a way that doesn't threaten your actual position, Machiavelli would tell you to let it pass. Not because you're weak, but because you're strategic. The moment you react to every disrespect, you become predictable. Your enemies learn exactly which buttons to push. They drain your energy with meaningless provocations while preparing real attacks you're too exhausted to counter. This is how the weak defeat the strong, not through direct confrontation, but through strategic depletion. Machiavelli documented this pattern throughout Renaissance Italy. The princes who lasted weren't the ones who defended their honor most fiercely. They were the ones who saved their fury for battles that actually mattered. They appeared almost passive to minor insults. Then, when someone crossed a line that threatened their real power, they responded with such overwhelming force that nobody dared cross that line again. This creates what Machiavelli called calculated unpredictability. People can't manipulate you if they can't predict when you'll respond. Some insults you ignore completely, others you obliterate. The key is that only you know the pattern. Your opponents spend their energy guessing while you spend yours preparing for battles that matter. Let me illustrate this principle with a composite example based on patterns Machiavelli observed. Imagine a prince who responds to every minor slight from neighboring territories. He sends armies for verbal insults. He escalates disputes over trivial matters. He makes examples of people who pose no real threat. What happens? His treasury depletes. Empaths aren't broken. They're alchemists in progress. The alchemist's path gives you drills, young-based boundaries, and 3 exclusive chapter videos to turn overwhelm into clarity. By Surreal Mind, 236-page downloadable ebook in stock. Begin now at thesurrealmind.com. His soldiers grow weary. His allies start questioning his judgment. And when a genuine threat emerges, someone who actually wants his territory and has been quietly building alliances while he was distracted, he lacks the resources to defend himself effectively. This prince fell not because he was weak, but because he couldn't distinguish between noise and signal. Contrast this with a narrative illustration of strategic patience. Consider a leader who tolerates minor disrespect with apparent indifference. Rivals mock him publicly. Lesser nobles question his legitimacy. Critics spread unflattering stories. He does nothing. People start to wonder if he's weak. Then, one rival crosses the actual line, threatening his core power base. The response is swift, decisive, and so overwhelming that every other potential enemy immediately recalculates their position. This is battle selection as psychological warfare. You teach people where the real boundaries are by showing them the difference between what you'll tolerate and what you'll destroy. If you're tired of people treating you like you're powerless, comment, "I choose my battles wisely." The third strategy reveals why most people lose power battles before they even begin. Machiavelli observed that emotional reactions are weapons your enemies use against you. When you get angry, defensive, or hurt, you're not expressing your feelings. You're handing control of your responses to the person who disrespected you. We see this dynamic clearly in the story of how Machiavelli analyzed the fall of certain well-intentioned leaders. Consider a case profile that appears repeatedly in his work. A beloved, honest, well-intentioned administrator who reacted emotionally to every political attack. His enemies learned his patterns. They knew exactly which accusations would make him defensive, which rumors would make him angry, which challenges would make him overreact. They played him like an instrument until his emotional responses destroyed his credibility. Contrast this with how Machiavelli portrayed strategic emotional control in Renaissance power dynamics. Let's look at a narrative illustration based on documented patterns. A powerful figure facing conspiracy from his generals who plotted against him, spread lies, undermined his authority. The response wasn't rage or self-defense. Instead, there was an invitation to reconciliation, smiles, embraces, an appearance of vulnerability. This lack of emotional response made the conspirators believe they had won. Their confidence made them careless. The strategic outcome speaks to the power of emotional control in high-stakes confrontations. This is the weapon hidden in emotional control. When you refuse to react emotionally to disrespect, you create the illusion of weakness. Your opponent believes they're winning. They grow bold. They make mistakes. They expose themselves to the counterstrike they never saw coming because they were too busy celebrating your apparent defeat. Modern psychology calls this emotional regulation. Machiavelli called it power preservation. Every emotional reaction costs you energy and reveals your vulnerabilities. Every moment of strategic calm accumulates power and conceals your intentions. The person who controls their emotions in a power battle isn't suppressing themselves. They're weaponizing patience. But here's what makes this strategy truly dangerous. You're not eliminating emotions. You're redirecting them. That anger you feel when someone disrespects you, don't express it in the moment. Store it. Let it crystallize into strategy. Let it fuel your planning. Then, when the perfect moment arrives, release it with surgical precision in a way your opponent never anticipated. Think of emotional control as a reservoir. Every slight, every insult, every moment of disrespect adds water to that reservoir. Most people let it overflow constantly through emotional reactions. They leak power with every outburst. But when you build a dam and hold that water back, you're not suppressing anything. You're accumulating pressure. And when you finally open the gates, the force is devastating precisely because it's been contained and directed rather than scattered and wasted. The fourth strategy addresses the mistake that destroys most people's power permanently. Never reveal how much disrespect affects you. Machiavelli watched countless nobles fall because they needed everyone to know when they'd been wounded. They wore their hurt like badges of honor. They expected sympathy, validation, support. What they got was more attacks. Machiavelli understood a brutal truth about human nature. People respect strength and exploit weakness. The moment you reveal that someone's disrespect hurt you, you've marked yourself as a target. Not just for that person, but for everyone watching. You've announced that you can be wounded through disrespect. You've drawn a map to your vulnerabilities. This doesn't mean pretending disrespect doesn't exist. It means controlling the narrative about how it affects you. Consider a composite example based on patterns Machiavelli observed in Renaissance power struggles. When a rising military leader faced public humiliation from rival families, the documented response wasn't broadcasting pain. The approach was appearing amused, almost grateful for the lesson in who the real enemies were. This response confused the attackers. They expected hurt, anger, defensiveness. The apparent indifference made them look desperate, while their target appeared unshakable. The mechanism behind this strategy runs deeper than simple psychology. When you refuse to validate someone's attempt to hurt you through disrespect, you invalidate their power. They disrespected you to feel superior, to wound you, to establish dominance. Your refusal to be wounded shatters their entire framework. They expected you to play the victim. Your refusal to accept that role rewrites the entire interaction. Machiavelli documented this pattern in The Prince when discussing how to handle betrayal. He advised that showing you're hurt by betrayal invites more betrayal, but appearing unbothered by it makes potential betrayers question whether betraying you achieves anything. You become what he called a poor target. The return on investment for disrespecting you approaches zero because you refuse to give your opponent the satisfaction they seek. This creates a fascinating paradox. The more someone tries to hurt you through disrespect and fails to get a reaction, the more their disrespect reveals their own weakness rather than exposing yours. They become the desperate one. You become the mountain they can't move. The power dynamic inverts without you having to assert anything. But there's a level beyond this that most people never reach. Machiavelli's fifth strategy transforms disrespect from a threat into intelligence. Every time someone disrespects you, they're giving you information. They're showing you how they think, what they value, where they believe your weaknesses are. They're teaching you exactly how to defeat them. Let's examine a narrative illustration based on Renaissance political dynamics. When rival families repeatedly insulted a rising power, they weren't just being disrespectful. They were revealing their strategy. They thought public humiliation would undermine authority. They thought emotional attacks would create recklessness. They thought they understood their opponent. But what actually happened was intelligence gathering. Each attack revealed tactics, patterns, assumptions. That information later proved decisive in orchestrating outcomes that historians still study centuries later. This is the intelligence-gathering function of disrespect. Your enemies tell you their battle plan when they attack you. They show you which weapons they think will work. They reveal which of your qualities they fear most by attacking those qualities hardest. A person who disrespects your intelligence fears your intelligence. A person who disrespects your influence fears your influence. They're not attacking your weaknesses. They're attacking what threatens them about your strengths. Machiavelli advised princes to maintain detailed records of who said what, when, and in what circumstances. Not for revenge, though revenge had its place, for understanding. Every insult is data. Every slight is strategic information. The prince who treats disrespect as random noise misses half the intelligence in every interaction. The prince who analyzes patterns of disrespect understands exactly where threats are coming from and how to neutralize them. This transforms your experience of being disrespected. Instead of feeling wounded, you become curious. What is this person revealing? Why now? What do they gain from this? What are they afraid I might do if they don't try to diminish me first? These questions turn every instance of disrespect into a strategic advantage. You're not the victim of their attack. You're the student of their vulnerabilities. Modern game theory confirms Machiavelli's observation. In any competitive interaction, your opponent's moves contain information about their strategy and their assessment of yours. The player who can decode that information while concealing their own gains a decisive advantage. Disrespect is just another move in the game. The question is whether you're playing checkers or chess. If you're ready to stop being a victim and start being a strategist, comment, "I am reclaiming my power." The sixth strategy separates those who understand power from those who merely wish for it. Machiavelli observed that respect gained through love is fragile. Respect gained through fear is durable. But respect gained through demonstrated capability is absolute. When someone disrespects you, the worst response is trying to make them like you. The correct response is showing them what you're capable of achieving without their approval. Machiavelli's analysis of military leadership across different eras reveals this principle clearly. Consider a comparison pattern he documented. One commander was feared and accomplished the impossible. Another was loved and accomplished the same impossible things. But when their armies faced real hardship, the feared leader's troops never mutinied, despite harsh treatment. The loved leader's troops did mutiny, despite warm relations. The lesson was clear. Capability commands respect in ways that likability never can. When you face disrespect, your instinct might be to prove you're worthy of respect through explanation, through justification, through making your case. Machiavelli would tell you this is backwards. You don't argue for respect. You demonstrate why disrespecting you is a mistake through what you accomplish. Not for their approval, but despite their disapproval. This strategy requires patience most people don't possess. You can't immediately prove your capability in the moment of disrespect. You have to hold that disrespect in memory. Let it fuel your work, and then return when your accomplishments speak louder than any defense you could have made. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote about strategic patience in conflict resolution. Not revenge through harm, but vindication through undeniable achievement. The psychological warfare embedded in this approach is devastating. The person who disrespected you has to watch you succeed without needing their validation. They have to witness your capability, making their earlier disrespect look foolish. They have to confront the fact that you didn't need their respect to achieve what they said you couldn't. This creates what modern psychology calls cognitive dissonance. Their brain has to reconcile their earlier dismissal of you with your current success. The discomfort of this contradiction does more damage to their confidence than any verbal retaliation ever could. But Machiavelli added a crucial refinement. Never explain your success to the people who disrespected you. Don't give them the satisfaction of knowing they motivated you. Don't teach them that disrespecting you might make you stronger. Simply let your achievements exist in the space where their disrespect used to matter. The silence of your success is louder than any explanation. They'll spend sleepless nights wondering how you did it, whether they misjudged you, what else they got wrong. That psychological torment is more complete than anything you could inflict through direct confrontation. This brings us to Machiavelli's seventh and most ruthless strategy: know when to cut people off completely. He observed that some people disrespect you, not because they misunderstand you, but because it serves their interest to diminish you. These people will never respect you, no matter what you achieve, what you explain, or how you respond. For them, your diminishment is their strategy. Machiavelli's writings on political alliances reveal a crucial distinction between enemies who can become allies and enemies who must be eliminated from your sphere of influence. Not every relationship can be salvaged. Not every disrespect deserves a response beyond permanent removal of that person from your life. The prince who wastes energy trying to win over people, committed to his failure, loses battles that matter to battles that don't. This is perhaps the hardest strategy to execute because it requires accepting a painful truth. Some people are in your life specifically to drain your power. They disrespect you to keep you defensive, reactive, focused on proving yourself to them instead of building your actual position. Every moment you spend trying to change their perception is a moment you're not spending on strategic advancement. Consider a pattern Machiavelli documented repeatedly in his observations of political collapse. Leaders who couldn't let go of toxic alliances kept trying to reconcile with people whose entire identity depended on the leader's weakness. They wasted political capital, military resources, and psychological energy on relationships that could never become supportive. Meanwhile, their real allies received less attention, and their real enemies grew stronger. The mechanism here is what modern psychology calls the sunk cost fallacy. You've invested so much energy in a relationship that cutting it off feels like admitting defeat. But Machiavelli understood that strategic retreat is often the path to victory. Every resource you reclaim from a toxic relationship becomes available for relationships and projects that actually advance your position. When you remove someone who disrespects you from your life, you're not running away. You're redeploying your finite energy toward battles you can win. You're stopping the bleeding so you can heal. You're cutting off the supply of attention that feeds your opponent's campaign against you. This is strategic withdrawal, not weakness. But here's the Machiavellian twist that makes this strategy truly powerful. When you cut someone off, do it silently. No dramatic exits, no lengthy explanations, no final speeches about what they did wrong. Simply redirect your energy elsewhere and let your absence speak. The person who disrespected you will eventually notice they no longer have access to you. By then, you're so far ahead of where you were that their disrespect has become irrelevant to your actual life. Machiavelli wrote that the wise prince makes examples of the first few enemies, but learns when to simply starve opponents of the attention they need to feel significant. Sometimes the greatest power move is making someone irrelevant through your indifference. They scream into a void you've already left. They attack a version of you that no longer exists. And you're building something they can't even see yet, because you're no longer wasting energy on them. These 7 strategies work together to create what Machiavelli called virtù. Not virtue in the moral sense, but virtù as strategic excellence, as the ability to navigate power dynamics with precision and purpose. You become someone who can't be manipulated through disrespect, because you've mastered every response that matters. Remember, what made Machiavelli dangerous wasn't that he taught cruelty. It was that he taught clarity. He removed the comforting illusions about how power works and showed the mechanisms underneath. People disrespect you because they believe it will benefit them. Your job isn't to prove them wrong through explanation. Your job is to make disrespecting you so unprofitable that they stop doing it. This doesn't mean becoming cruel or cold. It means becoming strategic about where you place your energy, how you respond to challenges, and who deserves access to your time and attention. It means understanding that power isn't something you're born with. It's something you claim through demonstrated capability, strategic patience, and the willingness to make hard choices about who stays in your life. The transformation from someone who tolerates disrespect to someone who handles it with Machiavellian precision happens in stages. First, you stop defending yourself reflexively and start observing strategically. Then you stop reacting emotionally and start responding with calculated timing. Then you stop seeking approval from people who don't matter and start building capability that speaks for itself. Finally, you stop tolerating relationships that drain your power and start curating a life where disrespect finds no fertile ground. Machiavelli spent his life studying what separates those who hold power from those who lose it. His conclusion was simple, but brutal. The people who keep their power are the ones who understand that respect isn't given freely. It's commanded through strength, demonstrated through achievement, and protected through strategic responses to those who test you. You don't need everyone to respect you. You need the right people to respect you for the right reasons. And you need those who disrespect you to learn that doing so is a mistake they won't make twice. Not because you punished them directly, but because you built something so undeniable that their earlier dismissal of you now reflects their judgment, not your worth. This is what Machiavelli meant when he wrote that it's better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. He wasn't advocating for cruelty. He was acknowledging that in a world where power matters, those who can be safely disrespected will be disrespected. The only permanent solution is becoming someone who cannot be safely disrespected without consequences. True power isn't about control or domination. It's about understanding the invisible rules that govern every human interaction and using that understanding to protect yourself while advancing your position. Every strategy I've shared today is simply a tool for navigating reality as it exists, not as we wish it existed. Machiavelli's gift to us wasn't cynicism, it was realism. And that realism, when properly understood and applied, transforms how you move through a world that respects strength and exploits weakness. The people who disrespected you yesterday are the same people who will pretend they always believed in you tomorrow, once you've demonstrated that disrespecting you was a miscalculation. Your job isn't to rub their faces in that miscalculation. Your job is to be so busy building your actual power that their earlier disrespect becomes a footnote you barely remember. If you're ready to stop letting disrespect drain your power and start using these strategies to reclaim your position, subscribe for more dangerous psychology that transforms how you understand human nature. The insights waiting in future videos will show you that everything you thought you knew about power, relationships, and social dynamics was carefully designed to keep you weak. Machiavelli saw through those designs 500 years ago. Now you can too. See you in the next dimension. In The Alchemist's Path, perception training for empaths, you'll turn overwhelm into wisdom with practical drills, Jung-inspired boundaries, and step-by-step perception training. This guide includes 3 exclusive chapter videos to deepen each lesson. Written by Surreal Mind, 236 pages, beautifully designed 8.5 by 11 downloadable ebook, in stock now. Start your training today. Feel deeply while thinking clearly. Get The Alchemist's Path at thesurrealmind.com.